Hey, welcome to the channel, I guess. Um, so this is not my first time on YouTube. It's not my first channel. It's not my first time putting myself out there on the internet. Um, but it is my first time kind of coming to you in this way, and definitely with this kind of content. Um, God, I hate even using the word content. Content sounds like I'm trying to produce something for you, and that's simply not the case. To be honest, this is probably the first time that I have done this without really any sort of plan at all. Um, I don't have a script. I don't even really have an idea fully about what all I want this channel to be. At the moment, it's just going to kind of be a stream of thought. And I did decide to name it Divine Divergence because that is something that I'm actually really hoping to dive into, and really the only part of a plan, quote unquote, that I have. Um, this year, 2025, has been a huge year of discovery. It's been a difficult year, and I think a lot of us can say that, but for me personally, this has been a huge year for self-discovery, and not all of it has been easy, but it has been, so far, I feel incredibly helpful, and also helps to keep me hopeful. And I wanted to bring some of that to you. I wanted to be able to record this, not just for others who may be going through the same thing, but for myself as well. I would love to be able to really see my progress and see my growth through this. Um, so, yeah, not really actually viewing this as content, not really subscribing to any sort of rules or algorithms or dynamics or even standards for editing or filming. Who knows? Maybe these won't even be edited. I have no idea at the moment. Um, but yeah, this is really my journey through finding out as a 49-year-old woman that I have autism and ADHD. And I didn't know until, let's see, just confirmed probably a month ago, but didn't start exploring until April of this year. So yeah. Um, Learning that your autism is something that contributes to all of the things that have made you you is quite an interesting way to spend your 49th year. I don't think I was ever upset about it. Honestly, I think I was relieved. It felt like finally I could explain a lot of what I've been going through, a lot of what I've been feeling my whole life. Helped me to put a lot of things into perspective and helped me to put kind of a name on so many things that I couldn't put a name on or had questions about myself. And one of the biggest things that I am finding is that it's also been a huge tie-in or answer or explanation for a lot of the medical issues I've had my whole life. I found out in my 20s that I had some autoimmune issues, thyroid, PCOS, thyroid specifically, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. And then, a little bit later on in trying to understand the autoimmune issues and hoping to gain some control there, or at least helping to manage it better, I did a lot of work through genetic studies. I had my DNA ran, and upon kind of having that decoded, I learned that I also hold the markers and was positive for MTHFR and COMT. And that was a marker from each parent. So that also kind of started to nudge me in the direction of things like autism. It had definitely started to become discussed in forums about MTHFR and COMT, both which can cause a lot of different issues, especially for MTHFR. I think one of the main things is that your body really doesn't hold the enzyme to break down vitamin Bs. So your B vitamins need to be methylated vitamins in order to be absorbed properly. And that is something that's definitely a building block and helps your body to do so many functions. So without that, there's a lot of issues that can arise through that. But just as I got older, I started realizing, especially being 49 and kind of being on that bridge of perimenopause, which definitely does not get discussed as much or as often as it should, in my opinion. It's been hard. There's a lot of hormonal shifts. There's been a lot of times when I felt like I just didn't feel myself. I felt like my moods were shifting a lot. I felt like my anxiety had risen to like whole new levels. And, I've never been a person that, like, I believe in therapy 100%, but I kind of didn't know how to go about it. And I finally did this year. I made the decision that I really needed to talk to somebody about what I've been experiencing and what was going on and get to the bottom of it. And so that was April for me of this year. Just really diving in, finally figuring out how to get the help that I needed, and then, speaking to a talk therapist and speaking to a psychiatrist, which led to eventually getting the diagnosis for autism and now ADHD. So, yeah, as a Gen Xer, which I love being a Gen Xer, I think we had some of the best music and the best movies. And I think, honestly, we're a really important bridge to what will be and, kind of that midway point between what has been and what will be. And I feel like we're holding space still for a lot of amazing things to happen. And I think especially for those of us who are finding out that we are neurodivergent, that is a huge part of not only how we grew up, but how we're now seeing the world. And I think we have the ability to see a lot of things and discover a lot of things that other people might not. Especially in the workplace, and as we get closer to new developments, and as social media and technology plays more and more of a developed role in our daily lives, I feel like we are still that touchstone of, not having that technology. We didn't have the internet really growing up, not until we were older. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media. We played in the street and drank from hoses and did a lot of things that we probably shouldn't do. We rode around in the back of vehicles without a seatbelt, and we had crazy lives. Yes, absolutely. There were many of things that we did that I'm sure nobody could imagine doing. But at the same time, we had, I think, the most amount of freedom to explore the world and explore creativity and just be kids. Now, unfortunately, that also means that things like autism and ADHD really weren't discussed in ways that they are now. I think a lot of us are being diagnosed so late because we just had no clue. It wasn't something that was on our radar. It wasn't something that was talked about. And even though we may have seen things in the mainstream that were hints towards all of those things, they were either explained in a different way or we were made aware of it in a different way. People were seen as quirky or eccentric, and ADHD were, that was something that only little boys had, and it was only when they were hyper and like couldn't sit still in class and were disruptive. Those were the things that I think were our takeaways, the things that we remembered, because those were the things that were talked about. And especially for women, I think because we were all such high masking individuals, we learned to hide all of the stimming, and we were quiet and we were shy, or maybe you were loud and a little wild, but yeah, just wasn't explained in a way that was super helpful. That's for sure. And now that I'm really starting to view myself as someone who is neurodivergent, I can see all of these traits and little intricate pieces of my personality that were definitely huge signs that I can see now. Everything from, my constant hair twirling as a kid and my need to know why. I got in trouble so many times for asking why. I needed to know. I needed to know how things worked. I needed to have deeper understandings of everything. When I loved something 1,000% with all of my heart, and you could not tear me away from it. And, for being around other people, if I didn't know you, if I wasn't familiar with you, I was not a super social kid. I didn't like being around crowds. I didn't like being in a room with a lot of people, but I loved being with the people that I knew and was comfortable with one-on-one. But that was really hard growing up. I didn't really make friends easy. I didn't fall into the same patterns as a lot of the other kids. I didn't do a lot of the things that the other kids did. It was hilarious to me because I both kind of didn't like authority, but also was a rule follower. So, like, that confused me as a kid. I think I confused myself. Um, but also, like, remembering notes that would go home, from the teacher. Like, I remember a note that was on my kindergarten report card where my teacher told my mom she needs more time. You got to give her more time to do things. She's a perfectionist. It was kindergarten. I was 5. 5. A perfectionist at 5. What 5-year-old is a perfectionist? This one. She has troubles with her numbers. You have to give her more time. She can tie her shoe and she can write her name, but she needs extra time to work with scissors and glue, and she likes everything to be perfect. And give her extra time. When I was 8, there were months where I could not keep food down. We'd go into a crowded place and I would immediately have to go to the bathroom and throw up. And this went on for a couple months and we couldn't figure out what it was. I think the doctors looked at things like allergies, food allergies, so many different things. And what we realized was happening was that I had developed an ulcer at 8. And I remember distinctly the doctors telling my mom, she's just a really high-strung kid. I was 8. How did we not know that I was autistic? How did we not know that I had ADHD? But these are the things that I'm looking at now. Looking at my life, looking at things like hypermobility issues with Ehlers and mast cell and all of these other things that tie into being neurodivergent and having autoimmune issues, and just are in relation to the fact that when you mask for so long, your body is constantly in a heightened state. It's in fight or flight mode pretty much all the time, and that wears you down over time. There is so much left to discover, and I am just scratching the surface. So I think that's probably what most of these videos will be like. A lot of just stream of consciousness, stream of thought, sort of off the cuff. Oh, yeah. And, if that resonates with you, I would love to hear from you. If you're also someone else who is later diagnosed or has gone through, all of these waves of emotion as well. I welcome you. And, maybe we can figure this out together. And on the flip side of that, if you've come here to argue or tell me about meds that cause autism and things like that, I am not for you, friend. Find another channel. If you're here to pick me apart or, just fill comments with hatred, I am not for you. Because I really don't care. You're not going to get the rise out of me that you want. So you may as well just move along. But, if you're here to discover and you're on that path of discovery, then I highly suggest stick around and see what's next.